This morning, we are reminded once again of who Donald Trump really is. At a rally in Ohio, the former president said some migrants are not people. He cast doubt on the future of American democracy if he loses in November.
If this election isn't won, I'm not sure that you'll ever have another election in this country. Does that make sense? I don't think you're going to have another election in this country. If we don't win this election, I don't think you're going to have another election, or certainly not an election that's meaningful.
During that same rally, Trump continued to whitewash January 6. He stood for a recording of the national anthem performed by 1-6 defendants from jail. And he suggested he would pardon those who attacked the Capitol, calling them, quote, hostages. Joining us now, Washington Bureau Chief from Mother Jones, David Corn. He is also an MSNBC political analyst. Good morning.
Morning.
David, what did you think about Donald Trump's bloodbath comments? And I must note, look, Donald Trump's campaign says that he was talking about an economic bloodbath. Yeah. I don't know if I buy that, but that is, in fact, what the campaign said.
Trump has always done this. You know, we've been watching this show for over 8 years now, and others who, like myself, who've covered him for years, have seen it even longer. He uses these high-impact words that have either the direct or implicit tone of violence, right? You know, January 6th, come down, it's going to be wild. Go up to Capitol and fight like hell. I mean, he says these things over and over again, and he's actually used explicit violent language in telling his own people at rallies to beat the you-know-what out of protesters at these rallies. So at this point in the game, trying to parse a word like bloodbath strikes me as being entirely absurd. He's violent. In the same speech, he calls the people, hundreds and over thousands, who beat up cops a block or two away from where we're sitting today. He called them unbelievable patriots. This is violence, violence, violence. So when he says the word bloodbath, he knows what he's doing, whether he means an economic bloodbath or something else. In the same speech, he is endorsing political violence. And then when he says, you'll never have another election again if I don't win, well, that too has a tone of violence to it as well. The only way to take power would then be to use violence if there are no elections.
Let's play the sound. Let's play the sound.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I want to play that sound from the speech on Saturday in Dayton, if we could.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars.
So my takeaway from that is Donald Trump's a grown man. All right? He's a grown man. And, you know, last time I, saw and heard him speak, he could speak the English language with, some degree of confusion and sometimes with clarity. The reality is those were his words out of his mouth. You had the Biden administration come back with a statement, basically saying that, this is who Donald Trump is, a loser who gets beat by over 7 million votes, and then instead of appealing to a wider mainstream audience, doubles down on his threats of political violence. I think that's the right tone. I think the Biden campaign has put their finger on the right part of this. I mean, is that what we have to do now? To your point, David, we know he has a way of using these words and to sort of incite, the kind of response from his audience. But there is meaning behind those words, because as I said, my mom said, well, he's a grown man, so, use the words that you mean, right?
I mean, in the 2020 campaign and in this campaign, he uses apocalyptic language. He says that Joe Biden is a radical working with communists and Antifa to destroy the suburbs. That's literally what he says over and over again in campaign speeches. So he's saying that they're coming at us with violence. We have to meet them with violence. Of course, his analysis is absurd. Joe Biden hand in hand with Antifa and communists, but it has a racial component because he's talking about white suburbs, and it's all fear-mongering. It's fear-mongering. When you talk about violence, you're basically appealing to people's fear. You're trying to get them to see the other side as people who can only be dealt with
Right.
with violence. So, I mean, I keep coming back to this, that it feels like we're kind of stuck in Groundhog Day. We have the same discussion and debate about Trump, his use of language, his use of violence for the last 8 years now. When someone tells you who they are,
Believe them. That's what Dr. Angelou used to say, honey. That's what she used to say.
To me, the scary thing really is not that he's doing this, that he's been doing this for 8 years, and it's still appealing to tens of millions of Americans. And that's a deeper question that we need to think about, and a deeper challenge for the Biden campaign and the Democrats to contend with.
Yeah.
And I would argue, David, for the country, there was also, in addition to the violent rhetoric, there was the dehumanization of migrants, saying that some migrants are not people. I think we've heard enough Donald Trump sound for today, so I'm not going to play anymore. But he did talk and brag about the fact that he would have the largest domestic deportation operation in American history. I thought it was notable that he tried to argue that the crisis we are seeing at our southern border has affected Hispanic and African-American communities more than any others. That seems to me like a very strategic choice, right, Simone? We've sat at this table many times talking about the fact that the Trump campaign, they know they don't have to win Latino voters. They know that they don't have to win Black voters. They just have to siphon off enough margins from Democrats to create a buffer for them in some of these swing states. It is alarming to me, this language, both because we have seen what happens when Donald Trump uses this racist, xenophobic rhetoric, but it is also dangerous to me, Simone, that he is slipping in the middle, a call to Latinos and to African Americans to use immigration as a wedge.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably banking on that we're stupid, that Black and Latino voters are not paying enough attention, and that they can be scared with his xenophobic and, I would argue, quite frankly, racist rhetoric into pitting themselves against one another. In the same breath where he says these things, he will also, go on to say and try to say things as though that, I was very good to the Black community. Black people love me. Remember when he said that Black people really identified with him because, the Justice Department, from his perspective, is trying to is after him, and Black people identify with that. And so I just think that, again, people have to really look at not the polls, but what is happening in communities. And there is some skepticism among Black and Latino voters in various swing states across the country. But I think people have to slow their roll before they equate that with folks voting for Donald Trump. David, as the vice president has been saying on the campaign trail, I heard a speech of hers about 2 weeks ago, and she made the point that Democrats are fighting the couch. And I think that is actually the more concerning thing that for these Democratic campaigns, not that large swaths of people are going to vote for Trump, but that they could stay home.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's the big issue here for the Biden campaign. Reminding people again and again and again of the dangers that Donald Trump poses. This was a guy whose mismanagement of a pandemic cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of Americans. These were avoidable deaths, according to numerous scientific surveys. And yet, people forget about that. To the extent that Sean Hannity can go on Fox and say, weren't you better off 4 years ago than you were today? 4 years ago, we couldn't open our mail. We were hiding in our homes, and we were worried. We didn't know what the future of the country or the world would be. And yet, so people are, they may not love Biden or may not be jazzed by him, but they need to remember what those Trump years were like, what he represents. And he does this fire hose of outrage. So as soon as he says something or does something outrageous, he does 20 other things. It all blurs together. People get numb. They turn off. It's Trump being Trump. And you even have like the New York Times saying he traffics in stereotypes rather than calling him an outright racist, because I don't know, maybe they're trying to be fair. I think they're trying to be fair. All these things blur together, and pointing it out and getting people energized about them is one of the biggest challenges the Biden campaign faces.
Well, that goes to one of the things I've been saying for a long time, and particularly we had the conversation yesterday, as you know, when we were talking about the recent, knots that the court system, the judicial system finds itself in dealing with Trump's cases. he floods the zone in such a way that the system doesn't know, A, what to do with all of the incoming, but then it gets, sort of in this space where, okay, he's a former president and we've never done this before. And it's almost a sense that his team is banking on that. They know that our system is not, our justice system, our political system is not built to deal with an asymmetrical player like Trump who doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's going to throw it out there. He's going to go out and use the kind of language that he knows, deliberately knows will offend. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to leave this little nugget here for you to work out. Tell me how you feel about it. I'm moving on. And so to your point, David, I think we have to now find ourselves collectively cleansing this out of our system and not focusing so much on every little bit, but staying focused on the bigger question of the man said he wants to be a dictator. Okay, that for me, that's where it all kind of ends. He said he wants to be a
dictator. He said that there won't be elections again in this country. Last night he said there's going to be a bloodbath, whether it be economic or a regular bloodbath. I mean,
at this point, it doesn't matter. You want to be a dictator, dude? Seriously.
He's telling us. And you know what? I really think that Michael's point is, now I don't agree that the system isn't built for Trump. I feel like the system could be, I think the system could handle Trump. It has decided it's going to treat him differently. But Michael's overall point, I don't think we should brush over it all. And maybe we all need to just take a sip and think about it collectively as Americans. But why do we find it, oh, okay, we have to move on to the next thing? We cannot, after 8, 10, 15, I mean, how long has Donald Trump been out here treating him like a regular person? He's not regular. He's been saying these things.
Can I just point out something to you, folks? My wife pointed out to me the other day. She said, I just want a day when I can get up and not have to think about, talk about, react to, or see Donald Trump on my news, in my papers, in my media. Folks, we have been inundated and consumed by this one man for 8 years. You don't talk about anyone in your family that much. You don't talk about your friends that much. Ask yourselves, when you have a conversation, how many times does someone raise his name or you bring it up? That's the problem we have in this country right now. We need to cleanse ourselves of this. This election is the way you do it, in my view. He's telling us.
I agree. You're right. That is the only way.
That, what his world is going to look like, you either want more of that or you don't. And so this is, for me, David, a very clarifying moment. But, that's all.
Well, we've had other clarifying moments, right?
This has been a clarifying couple years, honey. We at the inflection point. I mean, we there. We right there. Elections matter. To be clear, I think we need to say this. We are talking about him, and the news media is talking about him because he's running for president. And if people are not paying attention, and if we do not tell people what he is saying so that they can find out how they feel about that, he will get reelected. And then y'all gonna be surprised when, again, the ladies be walking around in little red dresses with those little white hoods like the Handmaid's Tale.
If it makes you feel any better, I have already put evac on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I can assure you.
Hey, General, let me into the war room to see you, so I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Wheelie.
Sir, come on, what is it now, please? Okay, couple of things. I'm running low on the dough. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah. I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I was so damn good on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
This was just a diversion. Security, please bring up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. Boss readiness. What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Right, evac.
She's right in front.
after the host party. General Marshall! General! Immediately got to evacuate. Hold on. National security advisor. Stay down. Check it out. The celebration. The amateurs. Suicide mission.